everybody. Welcome to Mentor Minutes, a podcast with myself, Jared.
And Jay.
And we do a video and audio podcast for the YouTube channel Meeple Mentor. And if you didn't know, we also do this audio to various streaming services like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and probably 10 others.
Yeah.
So if you want to listen to us in the car or wherever, then you can totally do that on your phone or what have you. But if you want to catch the video version, then of course, check it out on YouTube. And I'll put up a little bit of images of the board game covers as we talk about them. So you kind of get that visual. But otherwise, thanks for tuning in today. Thanks for checking out our podcast. We're on episode 9. And
almost 10 episodes in. Wow.
Almost 10 episodes.
Surprising.
We got to do something special for episode 10.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, top 10 for a 10, but what is it going to be?
I don't know.
You'll have to wait and see.
We've been doing a lot of top 10 board game lists recently.
Mm-hmm.
And the basically the past few have been best of the decades.
Yep.
Now, I think we're done with the decades, but we do have another top 10 today for you. Do you want to introduce it?
Yeah, so this is going to be top 10 games that are kind of new to us or that we played, fairly recently over the past couple months and stood out in some way. They don't have to necessarily be new games, but they're at least new ones that we've played.
For the first time and really enjoyed. Although for me, in my list, I checked it and all but 2 of them actually came out in the last year, in 2020.
And I think most of mine did come out within the past year or 2. I do have a couple on there that are a little bit older.
Okay. So I'm excited to hear, what games you've picked and to share what I've picked. So disclaimer, of course, being a top 10 list, it's a complete, opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to comment about it, no hate, but we would love to hear what your top 10s are and, see what you think of ours.
Yeah, and I suspect with this list, we're going to have some crossover.
Yeah.
Because we've been playing games together quite a bit as well. So
we have.
It'll be interesting to see how many we do, if we in fact have some.
So here we go.
All right.
Number 10. So my number 10 pick is a racing game, and I actually don't play a lot of racing board games, but I was really drawn to this from some recommendations of friends of mine, such as Justin over at the Me, Myself, and Dice. He recently talked about that as some of his picks for top games that he liked in 2020. This is called Rallyman GT. So in this game, you've got these large tiles that you can create the track that all players are racing on, and you're racing your GT cars. Up to like 6 players can play, but you can also solo play this game and record your time. And there's ways to count up what your lap time is based on your gear that you're in at the end of each of your turns. And it's really interesting, really kind of cool. There's, of course, like several preset tracks that you can build according to what the rule book recommends. But after that, you're on your own. You can totally build your own track. You can make it really long or really short. You can do multiple laps. All of that. There's just a lot of freedom to how this game works. But the crux of it is about using the dice to plan your route and figure out when you want to speed up and slow down, and using brakes when you have to. But you roll those dice to check for hazard icons, and if you get basically 2 or 3 hazard tokens, depending on your wheels that you're using, then you spin out of control.
Oh, that's cool.
And based on how fast you're going and the difficulty of the tile that you're on depends on basically your rest penalty, either 1 turn or 2 turns. It's really cool and it's really fun. If you haven't played it and you're looking for a cool racing game, it's pretty solid. Check it out, Rallyman GT.
Now I love racing games.
Mm-hmm.
So I've never even thought or considered a racing game could have a solo mode.
Oh yeah,
but that's pretty wild.
Yep.
This is one I'm going to have to check out now. Definitely.
And I believe that they on their website, the publisher's website, there is a like kind of either a forum or a way to compare your score with other players,
like a
time trial, competition.
Huh.
So neat. You can basically either you can give your layout of your track.
Okay.
and then have other players, try to race you in time trials. Or, of course, all the standard tracks that are outlined in the rule book always have those available for competition.
Yeah.
So, try to go as fast as you can without spinning out, and maybe you'll make the top 10 there.
I'm interested in this one.
Yeah,
Definitely.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's cool.
All right, so what's your number 10 pick for your game new to you?
So my number 10 is a game that we've both played together.
Yeah.
And it's called My City.
Nice.
This is by one of my favorite designers, Reiner Knizia.
Excellent.
And it is a tile laying game that uses polyominoes.
Mm-hmm.
So, very Tetris-y. But the neat thing about it being a legacy game is that each scenario, you're kind of playing 3 games, and the games are pretty short. They're like 15, 20-minute games.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very relaxing kind of game. It's one that... you can play between games really easily, almost like a filler.
Mm-hmm.
And it just has a neat progression because there's not a lot of rules. You're doing really simple things like each of the tiles is a building, and you're scoring points if you get the same color buildings next to each other, and you're getting points if you don't cover over trees, but you cover spaces on your board, and you can also increase your score by covering over rocks and things like that.
Yeah,
so
the rocks would be negative if they haven't been covered.
And there's a few rules that get added in. There's some stickers you add to the board. So it's a proper legacy game, and you definitely are going to get probably 30 plays out of the game. But it's neat because it also has another side where you can just play a regular game.
Like
so
it's standard mode.
Yeah, so you're not really throwing it away when you're done. But that one is really fun. I definitely recommend it, and it's called My City by Reiner Knizia.
It's a good pick. Number 9.
All right, my number 9 is a drafting game by Antoine Bauza, who is known for drafting games like Seven Wonders.
Mm-hmm.
And the name
also
of
did Takenoko.
He did Takenoko. He's done lots of great stuff. Sure. But this game is probably the lightest game I've ever played from him, and it has a cool dinosaur theme too, and it's called Draftosaurus. And this is another really great game for families. You can even play this with younger, smaller children, where it's kind of like a Jurassic Park theme, where you have your park, your dinosaur park. And on your turn, you're going to be holding like 7 different dinosaur, like Meeples, in your hand. And each dinosaur is a different type and a different color.
Mm-hmm.
So like all the T-Rexes are red, Stegosauruses are pink, that kind of thing.
Cool.
And then on your board, you've got different essentially exhibits that you can place the dinosaurs in. But at the end of the game, you're going to get points based on how you place them. So sometimes you have to place dinosaurs that are all the same type, or you have to place in one containment area dinosaurs that are only in pairs. So, really simple rule set. And as you pick a dinosaur, you then pass the dinosaurs to the next person, and then they choose one, and it just keeps going like that until you've placed, I think, 7 different dinosaurs. And then you score, and that's it. I mean, the game is like 15 minutes.
Wow.
Simultaneous play. And it's cute, just a real nice game to sort of start a game night with. And the fact that it plays so quickly and has 2 different sides of the board, you can play 2 games back to back in like 30 minutes. So
it sounds kind of simple enough that you could play it with kids pretty easily.
Yeah, I played it with kids. My daughter, who's 10, and she really liked it too. And it's easy to grasp the concept. So if you're looking for a really nice little filler, Draftosaurus is a great one.
Cool. So my number 9 pick is a game by Awakened Realms, known for their campaign games. They're really nice miniatures and high quality. They do their sort of this pre-paint process if you opt in for that. But all their games have been basically kickstarted. And this one came out in 2020. It's called Ether Fields. And it's a campaign, not quite legacy game, but you can play up to 4 people, 5 if you have the 5th player expansion. You're going from dream to dream, and then when you leave a dream, you then enter like the dream that you started with. So it's like dreams within dreams. There's both nightmares and like whimsical and just kind of fantastical types of things. There's crazy weird characters. There's, like I said, lots of cool looking miniatures in this game. And of course, the Wave 1's only delivered, so we've got the base game content and just a few things. But I believe there's a lot more to come over the next year, and I'm looking forward to that. Jay and I have been playing Aetherfields a couple of the Dream sessions so far, and it's been pretty cool, pretty engaging. It's got that exploration element to it, and you don't quite know what you're going to find, but you can take different actions using your cards. And then there's a like a script book similar to like a Seventh Continent-esque, or
Near and Far,
Tainted Grail, of course, their previous one. So it kind of combines all that, but I like the Dream theme, which is just kind of neat and allows for a lot of creativity and sort of the artwork and what you see on the on all the cards in the board. So I put that as my number 9. I thought it was really excellent, and I'm looking forward to seeing more as to what this game offers. So I've been impressed so far, and what do you think?
Yeah, I really like the game too. It definitely gives a little bit of that Seventh Continent vibe.
Yeah.
And I love games where you're exploring. It also has a little bit of choose your own adventure, almost a little bit of escape room too. Some of the dream sequences have sort of like puzzles embedded in the dreams.
You got to find your way out.
Yeah.
Kind of
So yeah, it's one of the more creative games I've ever played.
It's a unique kind of theme.
Yeah, unique kind of theme.
They do it pretty well.
Yeah, and the only reason I didn't include this on my list is because when I was looking at the time cutoff, we had played this a little before. Like we started playing a little before, and I cut mine off at like December, basically. We're filming this in January.
Yeah.
Or this would have absolutely been on my list.
Yeah. Well, I included it just to make sure that I had 10 games in my newly played. So I think I went back to maybe early November.
Yeah, and if I had, this would have absolutely been on my list.
Very cool. Number 8. So my number 8 pick for new game to me is a game that, again, came out in 2020. And it's one of these tea games that you might be familiar with. It's Tawantinsuyu, the Inca Empire. And this is a really cool and complex looking, but once you start playing, it's not so bad. The reason is it uses a lot of these symbols all over this large grid map that's sort of shaped like a hex or so of this temple with 3 levels, and throughout the game you're placing workers based on the cards you have. So the cards have those symbols which allow you to place a worker, and any matching symbol on the board that you can place that matches that card allows you to put there, and then you kind of gain benefits of the iconography and actions that are adjacent to that spot. And there's also abilities that let you build stairways, and so you can put your own stairs to allow for basically a cheaper cost for those lower levels. Everyone starts at the top. But of course, if you want to pay the cost, you can always go to the lowest level, except the stairs make it cheaper. And if someone uses your stairs to get to a level, because there can only be 1 player stairs for each of those sides, you get a benefit as well. So you are incentivized to get as many of your stairs out early, but but it may not be a winning strategy because there's so many other ways to get points in this game. And so I like the variability. I think the artwork's really nice. And once you kind of absorb the rules, because it is a lot to process up front, I feel like it just has a lot of unique worker placement mechanisms that aren't really seen in others. And so once you wrap your head around what it's doing, it's not too bad. And I think it's a really cool game that, it's great to add to my shelf amongst, games like Tzolk'in and Teotihuacan. So
all the other tea games,
all the other tea games that are somehow from Mexico or
they're all like South American themed or something.
Or Latin type of thing.
Latin American theme. Yeah, this is one I haven't played yet, but I am interested in checking it off my list.
Yeah, we'll probably have to do that soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's your number 8?
My number 8. It's as I'm looking through my list, I'm kind of going really light games, and then I start getting into a little bit more heavier, medium weight games.
I guess I just went heavy, huh?
But you just went the opposite.
Well, we haven't talked about my number 1
yet. Okay,
so we'll see.
So this one is a little roll and write game. really more like a flip and write game.
Okay.
And this is by Phil Walker Harding, who is like the master of these small little quick playing games that are just have really interesting mechanisms.
He gets a lot of the games published from Blue Orange, right?
He does a lot from Blue Orange, but he's pretty prolific. Like he's got a lot of different game credits to his name.
Mm-hmm.
But this one is called Silver and Gold, and you can actually find this at Target. So it's a pretty popular game, and it has basically an island theme where you're digging for buried treasure to get points. But what's really happening, and another polyomino type game, which I'm really enjoying these types of games lately, is you have a card and it has a grid of squares, and then an island piece will essentially come out, and it'll be a Tetris-like shape, and then you'll have to draw that shape on this little island that you have. And if you fill in all the squares on the island, then you get points for that particular card. But there's a little, more things going on. Like if you cover a coin, you can move up on a coin track to get, a bonus point. If you cross off certain other things, it lets you put X's, in other shapes. And you're always working on 2 of these cards at once. So it plays quick. You just do 3 rounds. You're flipping through I think 7 cards, filling in these X's. And it's interesting as well because each of the cards is actually you're writing on with a what's the opposite of a permanent marker?
Like an erasable marker.
That's the word. I couldn't think of that word. Dry erase marker. So you're actually writing on the cards themselves, and then you're just racing it. So it's fun, a neat little game. One of the ones that my wife has really enjoyed playing with me, and that's Silver and Gold.
Very cool.
My number 8.
I haven't played that one, so you'll have to show me that later.
It's good. It's really good.
That sounds good. Number 7.
All right, my number 7 is a family weight game, and this one is by a designer, Rudiger Dorn, who, when his name seemed familiar to me. He actually designed Las Vegas, Istanbul, and Karuba. So he's got a lot of good games to his name, and this one is called Luxor. This was also, I think, 2 or 3 years ago, was nominated for Family Game of the Year, and this is an Egyptian themed game where all the players are going on this sort of kind of circular path that keeps on kind of winding closer and closer and closer to basically this sarcophagus, and you're playing explorers, and you're each having a hand of cards, and the unique mechanism in this game is the cards that you have represent how far your little workers can kind of go along a path, but you can never move the order of the cards in your hand. So you start off with 5 cards, but you can only ever play the outer edge cards, so the far right or the far left. Then as you draw a new card, you put it in the middle of the deck, and then that opens up space for the ones that were inside to start working their way out. So you only ever have 2 choices, which makes this a good game for kids too, because you're only going to be able to play one of the 2 cards. But there's a lot of interesting things in the game because as you progress through this pyramid type structure, you're uncovering treasures, you're doing some set collection, you're getting points if you get further in, especially if you get all your explorers further in at the end of the game. And this was one that just was a hit with my kids. It has some really creative play, but it's simple enough for kids, but has some strategic depth to where I would actually play this with gamer friends too.
Wow.
So pretty neat game. I think it even has an expansion, and that's called Luxor.
Do you know when that came out?
I want to say 2018. I could be wrong about that, but I believe this was also nominated for the Kinderspiel des Jahres, but I don't think it won that year.
A lot of good picks there.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, these are surprising ones, especially some of the older ones that I had never played, but I'm glad I have.
Yeah, absolutely. So my number 7 is another heavier game, I guess. I mean, that's the theme here so far. We'll have to see how I do. This one is not from 2020. This is one of those two. It came out in 2015, and it's by our favorite heavy Euro designer, Vital Lacerda.
Okay.
The Gallerist.
Right.
I had been wanting to play this for so long, ever since I played probably like Kanban or Lisboa. I was like, okay, the Gallerist looks amazing, and I really want to try it. I ended up picking up a copy through their latest Kickstarter for the Kanban EV, and all I did was just back so that I could get the Gallerist with all the upgrades and stuff. And so it finally came, and I finally played it, and man, this game is awesome. It's beautiful, and it's got this really cool like worker mechanism. It's worker placement, but you can also gain benefits from someone going where your worker just was, and you can also leave assistants or hired people if you have them at those locations too, to get those benefits when other players go there. It's really well designed. I think it's pretty streamlined as far as like a heavy Euro like Lacerda games go, and it might creep to one of my top favorite Lacerda games. But I'll have to do a few more plays before I can judge that. But again, this one was new to me. I know it's been out for 5 years or 6 years.
Yeah.
But I guess I haven't explained what the game is. So if you're unfamiliar with the Gallerist, up to 4 people can play, 2 to 4, and everyone is they take the role of a art gallerist who is in charge of buying and selling art and displaying art in their individual gallery. You have to obtain tickets to get people into your showroom. And there are like 3 types of people that can come in, and they all have different specialties within the art scene and allow different things to happen, or points or that sort of thing, for having them in your museum. You're also limited to one of the high profile people that can come in based on how many art pieces you've sold, and so you kind of keep track of those as well. And also you can sort of fund or scout out new artists, and if you are like the first person who like invested in that artist, you're going to get their art for a discount. Like basically you get early entry access, but if they don't end up becoming famous or good, then it's not quite as beneficial. So sometimes you want to see who everyone's investing in and get onto that. But again, that's like that risk reward of, do you jump on that even though it's expensive now and hope that it keeps getting more expensive, or help fund a brand new guy who hasn't hit the scene yet and hope that, either you or someone else invests into advertising them and make them more popular. So there's a lot of cool mechanisms going on in the game. But essentially you're just moving your worker piece to take actions. And it's really cool. I think the theme is tied in really well, and I like the artwork as well. So if you haven't tried it and you're looking for a really cool, heavy Euro, check it out. The Gallerist.
Yeah, I've seen this game played like several times, and it is just a gorgeous production. So I definitely have to try this one.
Yeah, and I'd be happy to teach it. It's excellent.
Yeah, it would actually be my first Lacerda game.
No,
I've never played one before. Yeah.
Oh, it's another one of these podcast moments.
I know. I was a little intimidated, because of the heaviness. So yeah, I definitely have to try that one. Did he also design Lorenzo Il Magnifico? Or was that a different designer?
Different.
Okay.
Different guy.
So yeah, no, I have not played a Lacerda game.
So sitting right behind Jay on my shelf, I've got like 4 Lacerda games.
He's got his Lacerda
right
shelf
behind him. I've got the Gallerist, Lisboa, Kanban, Driver's Edition, Escape Plan. I mean,
Escape Plan.
We're going to have to try something.
That was the other one I couldn't remember.
We're going to have to do something. I don't have On Mars.
What we'll do is we'll do a Lacerda weekend, and I'll just, camp out.
Yeah, we'll get 2 games played.
There we go. I've heard they're long.
Number 6. So my number 6 pick, I've just played once again, maybe 3 weeks ago. This is from 2020. So again, brand new game. And it's one of my favorite Euro designers, Stefan Feld, who made this. And it is beautiful artwork, really, really neat mechanisms that sort of all intertwine as a good Euro should. But I really like the personal boards to this. This is called Bonfire. And if you haven't tried it, man, just look it up. The art is just, it
awesome.
sucks you in.
It's awesome.
You've got these little troll people or gnomes or Yodas, whatever.
Yeah. There's some little, I think they're gnomes.
Yeah,
right?
maybe.
Yeah, they're gnomes.
And so, you kind of use these guys to claim certain things, but you've also got this exploration area of the board, and you're sort of moving your ship around, trying to collect and gain different objective tokens, and then you want to complete those objective tokens, and then you've also got this track on your personal board where you've got competing things going opposite, and you can fill out the board, and you can there's so much happening here, but it's really cool and it's really fun. There's also polyominoes to this thing.
That's right. Yeah.
Like I almost forgot, like in the part of your board.
They're like straight polyominoes.
Yeah.
But they're
the long piece of like three squares long. And so, you gain one from one of the top or bottom of the stack of tiles, and then you place it on your board, and the way you arrange it, you kind of add up however many icons are lined up, and then you get those tokens, which can then be used on actions.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the extra ways that you can do stuff. Otherwise, there's the bonfire itself, where you take the bonfire action, you move the thing a certain number of spaces, and then you can collect like 2 benefits as what it's pointing to. But there's always options in there to choose from. And it's clever. I wish I knew more about the theme, because we basically played it to understand the game and less about what's going on. Yeah. But I'm really impressed with this game. I do want to pick it up for myself. We didn't play my copy or anything like that.
Yeah.
But it was cool.
I like this one a lot too.
Yeah. Bonfire.
Yeah. Another good Feld. My number 6 is a new to me game, and this one is definitely a hot game right now. And that's the Lost Ruins of Arnak. Yeah. I suspect this might be on your list as well. We'll see. This is by Elwyn and Men, who I had never even heard of this design duo before. But it's one of the basically three different games that were introduced recently. One's a Kickstarter that use this sort of hybrid deck building worker placement mechanism.
And this came out like 2 months ago.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's hard
October,
to get.
November 2020.
It's really, you can't find it anywhere. It's sold out everywhere right now too, unless you want to pay crazy prices. But it's got this really neat sort of exploration theme where you're discovering new lands, and it's definitely a Euro game. But the artistic design and the fact that there are like monsters in the game that you fight definitely sort of tread that line between the Ameritrash type style game as well.
It's definitely a very thematic Euro.
It's very very thematic. And the artwork is beautiful. It's one of the prettiest looking games, and the game itself looks like a Kickstarter edition because all the tokens, look like they're.
But this is from
custom.
Czech Games Edition.
Yeah, that's right.
They don't do any Kickstarters.
No, so. and what you're getting in that box, for $60 or whatever, is a pretty good value.
Yeah, those components are really nice.
Yeah, super nice. It looks like it's a deluxeified version, but in a nutshell, what you're doing is you have these cards, and you're either playing the cards to place your workers on worker placement spots that represent the way you're traveling sort of in these areas, either by land or by air or like in the water. Or you're using the cards for like their special abilities. So there's a lot going on in the game. Mostly you're collecting resources to try to score cards. You're purchasing new cards to add to your deck. And you're also moving up on like technology tracks. And it also has a really interesting way of moving on the tech tracks, because you actually have 2 different pieces that are moving on the tech track, and you can't move one of the pieces past the other piece. So there's just a lot of just really interesting concepts in the game. I found it a lot of fun. Played it twice, so it had to make my list. And that's the Lost Ruins of Arnak.
Yeah, the first time I played that was a online tabletop simulator version.
Yeah.
And I knew immediately I was sold on this game. I was like, this is fantastic, and I really want to try it in person. And then when we did try it in person, I was like, it's even better. And then like we packed it up and then like played 1 or 2 games. And then we were like, hey, what else do we want to play? And I'm like, why don't we just play that one again? That was so fun. And we played it twice, like later that evening.
And I can't think, other than filler games, I can't think of the last time I played like a meaty game twice in a row in the same day.
In the same session.
And it was even more fun the second time, I thought. So that was my number 6.
Excellent. Number 5.
Okay, my number 6 is another game by Phil Walker Harding. And this game is called...
2 on the list?
2 on the list. 2 on the list. You might see that in another designer as
well.
What
was the last time it was like everything was by Knizia?
That was Reiner Knizia. Yeah, that was my...
Well, he's made so many games, I can imagine.
Yeah, he's like at 600 games or something.
Yeah, you check the last episodes and he was just like, basically 8 of his 10 were from Knizia.
Right. Yeah, and I played 2 really, besides Silver and Gold, I played 2 other really good Phil Walker Harding games this year. One's Cloud City, and but I played that a while back. And then this one, which is called Gingerbread House. And this is one of the ones that would probably make an overlooked game list again if I were to do that list again. This is a family weight tile placement game with a really cute theme, really great components. And what you're doing is you're taking these sort of gingerbread pieces that have different candies and things like that, and you're placing them on a board, but you're stacking the pieces to make combos that match cards that are out on the board that you collect for points. I've also played this one with my wife and my kids as well. And you're sort of starting to build sort of a 3D structure, almost like a gingerbread house. And as you build it, you're also triggering combos. You can grab cards that give you sort of like a one-time use or one-time abilities. There's also some like wild tiles that you'll place. And it just has a really cool like storybook theme. There's a lot of, fantasy characters in it as well. You can get bonuses by collecting like happy or sad characters, depending on if they're like an ogre versus a fairy or something like that.
Now, is everyone building the same like house, or
everybody has their own separate house that they're building, but you're drafting from tiles that are in a public pool essentially. So you're also hoping to get stuff before somebody else gets to that first. And I was just really impressed by how fun this little game is. The theming is great. The game has great components, and it's almost always on sale. Like you can get this game sometimes for like $20.
Wow.
And it's well worth it for that price. So if you like Phil Walker Harding games, I think Gingerbread House is just an overlooked gem, and that's why it made my number 5.
How many people can play that?
It's 4 or 5. I think it's 5.
Okay.
Yeah. So
you have to have at least 4.
You have no. I'm sorry. It plays for. I think it's from 2 to 5.
2 to 5.
2 to 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Misunderstood.
Yeah, and I don't think there's a solo mode unless there's maybe a BGG variant. But and it plays quick too. It's like an under an hour type of game.
Cool. Check it out.
Yeah.
Okay, so my number 5 is the second game on my list that's not from 2020, but pretty close, from 2019, a game called Formosa Tea. I really enjoyed the art and the theme and the unique worker placement mechanism in here. You've got basically 2 halves to the board, and you're throughout the game you're trying to make and produce tea. So there's some engine building going on. You've got to collect the leaves. You're limited to how many you can hold at a time. There's like 3 types of leaves that you can gather, which make 3 different types of tea. And then you can add flavors, you can add scents, all for more points or for like more money kind of thing as you later sell them. Now, as I was saying, the left half of the board is kind of this, is like the plateau of like where the tea grows. And so there's like different rows that you can place workers at to collect the tea cubes that are growing there. And then after you do that, like basically however many workers are on that row allows everybody who has workers on the right side of the board to advance. And when they advance, they take the actions in there. And so imagine like the right side is the processing building to get the tea to where, it's ready to be, manufactured and, turned into tea. And I think that dynamic, because sometimes, if it's my turn and I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to be able to do anything unless someone goes there, and I can't go there. So I'm hoping that by the time it gets back to me, someone takes an action in that row, so that I can then proceed with what I wanted to do, because I'm not very good at planning ahead, apparently. But sometimes that's the way it goes, and then someone does it, and you're like, secretly like, yes, because it's like, oh, you helped me and you have no idea, because I was like, I had no plan otherwise. So but the just sort of that exchange of like, not only does my worker do its thing in one action or whatever, but I impact everyone else also down the row, who are working on their tea. So I feel like it also helps speed the game along, so that there's not waste on what it takes to get stuff done, and because a lot of these times people do this stuff simultaneously, it plays pretty quickly, and it's just a pretty solid game. I was very impressed, and I'm hoping I get to play it again really soon. So that's called Formosa Tea, from 2019.
Yeah, I like this game as well. It was for a game that has a small, kind of a small board,
fairly small table presence,
a couple, rows of cards, things like that. There's like a lot going on in this game.
Yeah.
And it played in 90 minutes, so you definitely get a very sort of satisfying feeling after playing this game.
It's like Euro-y engine building, worker placement, but not never overstays
even some
its
set
welcome.
Collection a little bit too.
Yeah.
But one thing, and this is why this one didn't make my list, although I played it recently as well. Because I am not great at games where it definitely requires like some pretty precise timing to do well, and I think that whole mechanism of making sure that your tea is kind of at the right place before you sell it
at the right stage.
That was also hard for me to grok in viticulture too, with the moving the grapes through and things like that. So this is one that definitely I'd like to play again. But good pick.
Cool. Number 4. So for my number 4 pick, this will be a very popular pick and game for a lot of people, and this was something that you can find pretty easily at Target, but it's a pretty heavy game and thematic Ameritrash. It's called Gloomhaven: Jaws of the Lion. This is basically like the large box full Gloomhaven experience, but in a much smaller package, much quicker to set up, quicker to play, easier to get into. In fact, the first 5 missions are all kind of walk through in the Learn to Play book. And so it's not that it holds your hand so much like, then do this, then do this. It's just, it slowly introduces the more complex rules or more complex cards that you'll end up using for your character. So you get a chance to actually play with this, the character you chose, a couple times before you get the more advanced cards and more complexities. And so I recommend it if you have Gloomhaven, or if you don't, because it's it introduces you to how Gloomhaven plays. So if you've already played Gloomhaven, you'll jump in and say, oh, I already know what's going on here, but it's a completely different story, different characters, but it still involves the Gloomhaven city. And you'll probably very much appreciate that you don't have to set up all the cardboard every time you get to a new scenario. Instead, it's all done through an exploration journal. And so you just flip it open, and then you move on the squares on the pages, similar to how Near and Far and Stuffed Fables and a lot of these games do now. And it's just so much more convenient. And the box literally is just like this, and you can find it at Target, which is even crazier to me that they got that deal, because I don't always think of Target as having deeper experiences.
And they're really starting to get a lot better with that.
Yeah, so that's a good sign overall for the industry, and I'm having a ton of fun with it. I'm doing actually 2 simultaneous campaigns on it. I've got a solo one going on right now, and of course, whenever you do solo Gloomhaven, you've got 2 characters you control.
Okay.
And then I also started another campaign with a friend of mine who, again, we're just kind of finishing the first few scenarios, but I'm excited to see kind of where this goes. And of course, as there's various points in the game where you make decisions, and sometimes certain scenarios get locked out. And other times you kind of come across event cards that, depending on your A or B choice to it, unlocks either new items or more gold or new scenarios, meaning like a new mission that you're taking on. So who knows if we'll see all the content in this, which is why I'm hoping I'll see more by doing 2 campaigns simultaneously.
Time, right? choose different paths.
Yeah, solo game and a 2-player game. That way I'm not reusing any of the same characters.
Yeah.
So otherwise that would get even more confusing as to like, which cards I'm using and what's making up my decks and stuff. But it's just really good. It's streamlined. It's a lot of fun. And I like Gloomhaven, and this is just like a better version of it. Just because the fact that it's going to hit the table more.
Yeah.
It's just easier to play. So that's why I put it on my list, and I was really excited by how easy it was to get into. Yeah,
this is one I definitely want to play because Gloomhaven itself just intimidates me.
It is intimidating.
So I think this is one I'll definitely pick up in the future.
For sure.
And playing it solo sounds like a pretty fun idea.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah. Nice. Good pick.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to have a crossover here. My number 4 is a Stefan Feld game called Bonfire.
Bonfire, what's that?
I mean, you talked through this already, but this.
Why don't you explain the theme?
Yeah, right.
Because I can't.
It's kind of I don't even know if the theme matters too much. It's like it's some sort of theme about all these gnomes getting together for this magical bonfire ceremony. But then you each have your own sort of individual bonfires.
Kind of like
but
there's clan or something.
Yeah, but there's a master bonfire. So, but really what it is it's a very Feld point salad type game. And I've played several Feld games. This to me is one of his better games that I've played. And a lot of people have said this is the best Feld that he's
really
come out with in years even. And I could see that.
I could see
that.
One of the better ones recently, but I still hesitate to think that it's probably his best.
Yeah,
there's so many.
There are so many. There are so many. But like you said, this is one of the best looking games I've played. I mean, the art design is just it's fantastical, but it's bright colors. I mean, you would not think this is a Euro game when you see it.
It doesn't even look like a Feld game that you would normally expect to see.
You would never guess it was a Feld game.
Yeah. It's very surprising.
And as you said, it has. I think what I liked the most about this was a lot of Feld games they have tons of ways to score points, and there's all these different ways to score points, and you can do a bunch of different paths to victory. But this one had so many mechanisms that were really like intertwined.
Yeah, really tight.
That mechanism of it's almost like a bunch of mini games, but they all work really, really well together. The mechanism you said with the drafting of the polyomino tiles, where you're stacking them together on a board to try to make combos to get more resources, and then those become your action point allowance that you can spend. And then that ties into how you're designing your board to create different like paths. And then the paths, if you match the colors to the bonfires, you get points, and everything just works. It's like a clock, like the inner workings of a clock. That just kind of, I think, showcase like his genius as a designer.
For sure.
To make all these.
It's impressive.
These different interlocking mechanisms that feel so smooth. And there's a lot going on in this game. I mean, like a lot going on in this game. But as you're playing it, it just feels really intuitive, like very intuitive as you play it. And
it's so tightly.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like the design is just so solid.
It's one of those games that like I thought about like days after I played it, and one that I'm going to seek out for my collection too. Sure. So Bonfire was my number 4.
Excellent. Number 3.
Okay, my number 3, and this is going to be back-to-back Felds.
Oh,
yes.
Here we go.
So the game that I'm referring to, which is much lighter than Bonfire, is Carpe Diem. And
it's not a new one.
It's not a new one. Although I think this one was nominated for the Spiel des Jahres a few years ago. And I'll get into a few weird details about the game too, but it's another tile laying game. It's not polyomino, but you're drafting tiles to make essentially a villa in Rome, and you're scoring points for at the end of each round for different objectives that you complete. and the objectives are completed based on the buildings that you build on your personal board. So, for example, if you if you build a vineyard and the tiles connect, to these two pieces that make a completed vineyard, then you're going to get grapes.
Mm-hmm.
And then those grapes may qualify you for like an end of round bonus, for example. There are also ways to score if you build large buildings that have a lot of chimneys. At the end of the game, you score for chimneys. So this is very much point salad-y. There's not a lot of interlocking mechanisms in this game, but it's almost family weight. I actually played this with my 10-year-old and my 15-year-old. If on your turn, what you're doing is you're sort of moving around a rondel, and each section of the rondel has 4 different of these square tiles that you can choose from and then place on your individual player board. So all you do is you move left to right, put a tile, place it. Like that's it. Yeah. So it's very simple. But where all the points come from are the end of round scoring, the scoring that you get for sort of personal objectives through certain cards that you can get, and then end of game points for if you've built your villa in such a way that it kind of intersects different paths and things like that. So this is one where you could do like some real easy variants to play it with even younger kids and just make it a fun sort of city building, game.
Like my first Feld game.
Yeah, like my first Feld. Or, you can really, take a lot of time with your decisions and play this like really strategically with your gamer friends. So definitely the lighter side of the Feld, but I was just really impressed with how simple it was. It plays really quick. I mean, like an hour. It's not that long. And the one thing I would say is there's now 3 different versions of this game. There's one version that has where the rondel has these lines that are intersecting the different pieces. And originally the game was designed as you sort of move along the lines to select your tiles in like a star pattern, which was a little bit confusing.
Like busy.
A little busy. So somebody on BGG actually said, well, if you basically unwind this star, it's really just a circle. And so all you need to do is go left to right. And so Feld actually said, oh, that's a great idea. I didn't think of that. And so the second printing got rid of the lines and just did that circular choice diagram or whatever they call it, the rondel. But then both of those initial printings had a lot of graphic design issues. The brown and the gold buildings were really similar. Some of the iconography wasn't great. So it was a tough game to sort of play unless you literally like wrote on tiles or put stickers on them. Wow. So they've just come out with a third printing where they've redone all the art. They've made everything really clear. Certainly the best printing of the game. And you can find some, well, you could do a how-to play video on the third one, but you just don't have it yet. But
I haven't played it.
Yeah, but it's coming out soon, and it looks really good. So if you're thinking about getting this Feld game, I would hold off a little bit. Yeah. But really enjoyed this. My number 3, Carpe Diem.
Cool, man. I'm looking forward to that. I really. Are you going to pick up the 3rd edition?
I may. I really did like it, but I put stickers on like all my tiles, like so you know which one's gold and which one's brown.
So for you, it's already functional.
It's functional now, and it works for me. So I probably will keep it. But the new edition looks a lot better, and it's Aaliyah, and Aaliyah is known for like really poor production, but they're getting better.
Okay. So my number 3 is another crossover, which I kind of expected on this list in particular, since it's new games to us, and we play a lot of games together. This one came out in 2020, and it was a nominee for Spiel des Jahres, and it's called My City. Yeah. And it's a legacy campaign where you use polyominoes to build a town every round or every game. And there's different chapters that you play through, and each chapter tends to introduce new rules or new components or that sort of thing to vary the scoring and vary what you can do on your town. You name your city. You you end up putting stickers all over it, throughout the gameplay. Not to spoil much there, but I mean it's a legacy game, so there's stuff that gets added, so you know how it is. But it's a lot of fun. I think one of the unique things, or just sort of things that sort of stands out to me and why I rated it high is it's really strategically deep, but it's also gameplay very simple. Like it doesn't take much to like know how to play this. It's just a matter of like planning ahead and like how strategic can you be with arranging it. But the randomness comes into like throw a wrench in your plans, because the card, you don't know what's going to come out next, and that's going to dictate which piece you have to play. And if you choose not to, you're going to lose a point. And I think it's just very streamlined. It's bright, colorful, it's got a good theme. I like the polyomino aspect of just placing tiles out, and then of course like covering certain things, leaving certain things open. So there's all these sorts of decisions that you're making, even though it's a very simple, like just play the tile that comes out on the card. And each chapter has 3 games, at least so far, that take place in that rule set before things change again in the next chapter. What was it, like 13 chapters?
Yeah, I think it was like 13.
Somewhere around there.
8 to 13. I can't remember the exact number.
So and it's fun that it doesn't take that long to play. So we generally play 3 games in a row. And move on, and
that's at 4 players.
Right. A 4-player game is like
so fast.
3 games in a row,
an
hour
15, something like that.
Hour 20 maybe.
Yeah. And you said something that I forgot to mention too. With the legacy nature of it, it's literally, you could teach this game in probably 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I
just taught it to you.
that fast. But I do love the way that the element, the catch up element happens. So if you end up being like last or second to last, each of those stories within the campaign, it gives you a lot of cool bonuses that let you get more points more easily. And that's I think it works really well in that game.
Yeah.
And in some cases, like you almost feel like I don't want to win because I want that like I want that extra tile, or I want those stickers. Sticker, so it gives you that feel of being last isn't necessarily a really bad thing. So yeah, good pick. Good pick.
Number 2. So my number 2 is a game that was in production for a long time via Kickstarter. I wasn't a backer, but one of our good friends was. It's a very bright and colorful game delivered in 2020, called Tidal Blades: Heroes of the Reef. And we've played it together as well, Jay and I. And I don't know, this game is so fun. Like, I like the board arrangements. I like the cards. I like the art. I like the miniatures. The actions are all really cool and fun. I like that when you take and complete challenge cards, you also earn, which is kind of like XP, but you're focusing on one of 4 traits for your character. And each of those traits, as they level up, give you more benefit. And it's just everything you do is fun.
Yeah,
like
it's a really fun game.
I mean, like, I don't know, like every time I play it, even if I lose, like, it's just so fun to like build up my character and just taking actions on the board. And every time at the end of the game, I'm just like, can we play another round? Like, why does it have to end?
Yeah, it does. It feels like there should be an extra round.
Like, let me do one final round or something, because there's still so much I want to do, and it's just so fun. And there's monsters in the game that come out, and they're like these cards that you have to like slowly poke them with different damage types based on the rolls that you do. And there's a lot of dice in this game. It's kind of dice crafting in addition to worker placement and character building or engine building or whatever you want to call, like, improving your stats. So there's just a lot sort of tied together, and it's really solid. It's not really too complex. And I say that, but I'm coming as a gamer. I mean,
it's a medium weight.
It's medium weight. I wouldn't say it's as heavy as like a heavy Euro or a Lacerda or something. Now I believe, so the Kickstarter has been delivered, but they're doing another print run for retail, which has like basically less plastic, less miniatures, less
smaller box
components that are like the tangible pieces. It's more cardboard. But the gameplay is so solid. I mean, it's just so fun. I'm really looking forward to just picking up a copy for myself. So if that sounds up your alley, I mean, definitely check it out. Try to get a copy or pre-order, for the retail edition. And even better if you can find a copy of the Kickstarter, although I don't know why anyone would want to sell it.
Yeah, I agree with all the reasons you said. And it's one of the like the most beautiful games I've seen produced, especially the Kickstarter version. The colors, it looks like Disney art or Pixar art. It's
high
so
quality
good.
stuff.
Everything's high quality.
I mean, it has a
this
lot
was
of,
fun.
uniquely designed and custom inserts to the box as well, which is just always appreciated for sorting stuff.
And the Kickstarter has like a dice tray built in, like a plastic, like it looks like an arena. I mean, when you think about games that are overproduced, like this is maybe number one on my list.
So this comes with a dice tray for you to roll your dice, but it's like a really overproduced plastic miniature.
Like it looks like a Coliseum.
It looks like a Coliseum, and you're like doing battle, and it's so cool.
It is cool. The dice are super high quality.
Yeah, the production value is high.
And one of the things, again, the only reason that this would have been on my list too is I was using that cutoff time. But this reminded me so much of Champions of Midgard.
Yeah, I can see that.
And that is a great game. And so I'd say if you like Champions of Midgard, but you want a
more
just
fantasy
a cool, more fantasy, cool sort of, I don't know, almost Legend of Zelda like water world type theme.
There's definitely like that water world feel because every like little board that you can go to is kind of its own island.
Yes,
and it makes up this world that you're exploring.
Yeah, I think you'd like it. I think you'd like it, and you have the same dice risk as you would in like Champions. So
plus
good
there's
pick.
not much like personal upgrading in Champions, right? I mean, it's
not
quite
really
like Tidal Blades.
No, Tidal Blades has that unique mechanism,
and I think that also sort of sets it apart. In
plus your own deck, which you have in which you don't have in Champions either. Champions is much more about sort of the dice, and this is really a combination of mechanisms. But yeah, I did like this one, and the box is gorgeous.
Oh yeah, it's
but
beautiful,
it's huge.
Beautiful. I mean,
you cannot fit it on your shelf.
It's one of those high quality table presence games. When someone sees it for the first time, they have to stop.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Like they have to see it. So check it out.
Good pick. Very good pick. Okay, so
what's your number two?
My number two is it's actually another polyomino style game. It has that as a mechanism.
So it's not My City. It's not Bonfire.
It's not My City. It's not Bonfire. It's not Silver and Gold.
What were the other polyominoes you
did I have another one? Gingerbread House is still a little bit on the edge. On the edge.
All right.
So this one is called In the Hall of the Mountain King. And this is by Jay Cormier. And I had heard about this game. This game came out a couple years ago. I think it was 2018, 2019. It's a neat theme where you're sort of like trolls returning back to your ancestral home in the mountain now that like the elves have left or something, or the gnomes have left. I forget. Maybe it was the bonfire gnomes. Who knows?
Everyone knows trolls don't like elves.
Yeah. So they return home, and they're basically, you're all these different clans, like an ice, fire, or moon clan. And, you're competing to try to kind of rebuild your homeland within the mountain. And the way you're doing that is the board is laid out in a grid, and the middle of the board is like the heart of the mountain. That's kind of, where you're trying to get close to. And you're spending resources to build tunnels, and the tunnels are the polyomino pieces. And what you're doing is when you place one of those on the board from your sort of starting area, you're trying to sort of dig closer and closer to the center of the board. And on the board itself, when you place the tunnel, you might be covering over some ancient statues that you'll resurface. You may be covering like resources like heartstone and iron and things that you can then use, to build other things. Or you may have to spend like hammers to break through certain places on the board where there are
hard rock
or something, to get to.
You know what that sounds like? Super Motherload.
Yeah, it does, and that's another reason I like this game a lot, because I really like Super Motherload. But it combines some really neat mechanics, because when you start the game, you have 4 cards, and each of those cards is a different troll that produces a different type of resource. But then what you're doing is when you draft new cards from the horde, which is this sort of pyramid of trolls, you take one of those new cards and you stack it on top of 2 of the other cards that you already have. So you build like a pyramid, but when you stack it, what it does is not only does that card produce resources, but it cascades down. So any cards underneath it will produce resources again. So when you end up building like the 10th card, I mean, you're getting like all your cards are firing. So you're building this kind of little engine that is producing more goods, that's letting you build more things.
Cool.
And there's also this neat mechanism of these statues that you're moving along the board as well. And if you can get those statues closer to the heart of the mountain, you're going to score more points. And the mountain has different colors based on the tiers of the mountain regions. It's a beautiful game. It's not too hard to play. It's medium weight. But it has a lot of just really fun elements. And I guess I would just describe this game as fun. It's not too thinky. But it plays out differently every time. And it's a nice little puzzle, but it has a lot of just really cool, fun mechanisms that make it really a unique game. And the table presence is also, it's a beautiful game. It reminds me of Bosk.
Oh, yeah.
As far as those types of colors they use.
Really?
It's as pretty as that game. And if you're lucky enough to get the Kickstarter.
It's a nice looking game.
Yeah, if you get the Kickstarter, it's got all these upgraded components, but even just the base game has really, really good quality. All the different components are different. The statues are carved differently. I mean, it's a cool game. So that's my number 2 in the Hall of the Mountain King.
So when you were talking about, sort of moving these statues, that reminds me of like Legend of Zelda or even some earlier NES games where, you're pushing things.
Actually, that's fine. I never even made that comparison, but you're right, because you're also you're getting these carts and you're spinning carts to move the statues from tunnel to tunnel. And if you can get it on a particular spot, it like doubles your points. Like if you put it on a pedestal.
Nice.
So it does have a lot of that sort of theming.
Sort of that adventure puzzling
I never thought of that,
part that is in certain video games.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
I like that.
Maybe that's why I like it so much.
Maybe. And I mean, I was sort of raised on playing video games and, but I kind of converted into board games in the past,
Yeah, so I think you definitely like this one.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Yeah,
and
it's cool. It's cool.
So close to playing it in our last game session.
Yeah, we will though. We got plenty of time.
We have time.
Maybe we'll play this twice like with Arda.
Yeah, we were like voting between that and an Anachrony with all the Infinity Box stuff. Yeah. And I think everybody was really excited to do Infinity.
Yeah, that was wild.
Oh, it's so good.
That was wild.
But anyway.
Cool.
Honorable mentions. So I think before we get into number 1, why don't we do we have more than 10? Do you have any honorable mentions that you want to talk about?
I do. I have 2 actually.
All right.
So one of them is actually what you just mentioned was Anachrony.
Really? I'm going to just jump on that. That's also on my list.
Yeah, Anachrony.
Now, I've played Anachrony.
I had never played it.
First of all.
Yeah.
But the reason I can't put it on here is because I played the base game.
Before, yeah.
But the expansion makes it so different. I mean, it's just so good. It's that much better that I want to include it. But so unique.
I was, because it was the same kind of thing, because I was thinking when we played it first. So that's why I didn't make the list. But then because we played the expansion, I had to mention it.
For sure.
And I had never played this game before. The base game has a lot going on, and it really uses this sort of time travel mechanism in a unique way. In some ways, a frustrating way, because you have to there's this
you have to pay it back.
You have to if you borrow something from the future, essentially you have to pay it back.
You got to give it to yourself from the future.
Yeah, it's
so cool.
It's a cool concept, but it can be punishing if you can't make up for that in the way of generating paradoxes and things like that. But it's cool because it's almost like a matrix or a multi-tiered worker placement game, because you not only have workers of different types that get you benefits on different places, but they can't go everywhere unless you use, like in the overworld map, you use a mech suit.
Like an exosuit.
And if you have like the upgraded, miniatures, you have to stick your little guys in the mechs and then move the mechs. So it just there's so much going on. I mean, this is a thinky game. I really liked it. And then
pretty heavy.
And then when we threw in that expansion, which you'll talk about, I mean, this is a game you want to make an event out of this game. This could be like a 5-hour game.
It can very easily
with
be
all
5
the expansions.
hours.
But once you talk about the expansions,
so I got the Infinity Box, so now I've got literally everything that Anachrony's produced or Mind Clash games, right? And so we included several modules. First of which is the Fractures in Time module. Also, the promo card, which is just a promo card, action space, the hypersync board in that module, and the quantum loop module. And so that's quite a few things to add. And each of those things also adds generally its own board. So as far as table space, we were completely maxing out this table. I mean, we had nowhere to put anything.
We had like 5 individual boards, maybe, I think. And then there's 3 on the main board. There were 3 main boards.
And one of them was like at the edge of the table and kept sort of like teetering off of his,
it was like a seesaw.
His mat there. And oh man, it was at one point, I mean, everyone was just looked at it like, oh my God.
Yeah, it was,
what
there was
is
like
happening?
there wasn't even an inch of the table. It was crazy. It was crazy.
And I was like, no, don't worry. It's not that bad. I'll teach you. It's not that bad.
I was worried. I was really worried.
I know you were, but I was like, trust me, this new mechanism, the blinking, right, is so
super cool.
So fun.
That is super cool.
So there's this new resource added in the expansion and a new worker type called the operator. And there's the resource is a flux core. And if you use your flux core as your action, you place it on your fractured device, and it allows you to move someone from your main board, like, or from the capital board, to a different action space on any board. And after you do that, you remove the worker so that you can't do that again with him. And then you roll the 2 dice that check if you gain glitches. Now, if you use the operator, then you don't have to roll, and you're never going to get a glitch if you use the operator. But everyone else, you have to roll. And the number on the die, if it's higher than the number of empty spots still on your like machine, then you have to take a glitch token, and it basically mucks up everything that you're trying to do. It can block, your time warping advancements. It blocks exosuit spaces.
Buildings.
It blocks the flux stuff that you're doing with the blinking. It blocks buildings. I mean, it's
paradoxes could trigger more quickly.
Absolutely,
well,
and
it's risky.
It's very risky, but all of a sudden, your 3 exosuits, instead of giving you 3 actions, they're doing 6 actions.
Or more.
And so you're just constantly wanting to get as many flux, energy cores as you can. So you just keep maxing out the turn. And what we found was the game is significantly longer.
Yeah.
Because everyone's doing so many different things.
We were taking about 45 minutes around, I think it was.
Which is a long time.
Yeah, and it started it late, so we never got to do it.
We didn't actually get to finish it because everyone was like crashing from all the new stuff, and it was just like we've been playing it for hours, and we're only on like the 3rd era or 4th era.
This is one like you should plan an evening around it.
Make a whole day.
Start it at like 5 o'clock.
No later than 5.
Yeah, order pizza in between something.
But it's so good.
It's really good. It's what I found is it's just a very satisfying game. I mean, the things that you're doing give you so much to think about. The actions you're taking are really significant. And once you're playing, like it is a bear to learn. And I was certainly asking a lot of questions throughout the whole game.
I made sure when he first played it, we just did the base game, so that when we introduced
that helped.
all the extra stuff, then it would be easier.
Yeah, because the thing is, it's pretty much a non-text game, right? It's all iconography.
Yeah, it's all iconography.
Yeah, so I mean, once you get that down, you're pretty good.
Yeah.
But then when they introduce more stuff, it's just more to learn. So the second game you'll be fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a good one. So that was my honorable mention. I had one other one. Oh wait, did you do one yet?
I have not.
Oh, go ahead. You go ahead.
Okay. I have one to talk about other than what we just did. It's called Viscounts of the West Kingdom.
Okay. Yep.
This is sort of the 3rd game in the West Kingdom trilogy, because you had Architects and Paladins and now Viscounts, and I'm sure it's getting its own expansion probably soon.
Yeah.
It's a unique sort of game. Although it does take place in that universe, it's going to have the same kind of artwork you're going to expect to see in those. Plus, a lot of the same components, like those workers. But there's some new stuff. The way that it plays is also pretty unique. You've got one piece riding a horse that goes basically clockwise around the board, and you can kind of choose like up or down to kind of go between the inner actions and the outer actions. And there's so much you can do, but one of the things you're doing is you've got 3 cards in your hand and you have to play one every turn, and then you've got a set of 3 in front of you, so as you play one they slide down, and then the third one kind of bumps off, but whatever 3 are face up in your personal display board, add to whatever actions you're doing based on the icons and resources that are shown on those. So you sort of plan ahead, like, okay, if I play this one this turn, next turn I'm going to have a bigger action if I do this, secondarily. And you're collecting coins and resources like gold and like stone and things like that. But those resources are spent to boost the actions that you're doing on those inner or outer spots. And also each the board, it's circular, but it's also pieced into 5 sections. And based on the section that you're in, there's also specific cards like decks set out, and whatever face up card is there, you can do one of 2 things during your turn. Firstly is if you want to use that card's icon and special, you can pay for the card just for its ability and discard it out of the game. And then later, the end of your turn, you can then buy a card, including whatever flipped over from the one that you got rid of, and add it to your deck. And so there's some light deck building as well, because you can slowly add some specific cards into what you have. Everyone starts with the same deck of cards, but as you play on and start purchasing these new cards, you get more powerful versions, and ones that have better or more icons, and so there's a lot of ways you can score. There's like 4 main icons that each have their own paths to get more points. It's just unique. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a cool game. I mean, Shim Phillips is just like a
super
crazy
creative
designer. Like, he just can put out games and so quickly, and they're so, like, they use some similar things, but the games are so different,
completely different.
and that's just so impressive. Yeah, so impressive that you can do that. I like this game as well. I'm a real big fan of Architects. Architects is a much simpler game. It doesn't have as much going on. I did like this game. But it's one of the ones where I was like, there's so much going on in it.
It's kind of hard to know what you should be doing.
Yeah, hard to know what you're, and there's also some, you're getting deeds and debts similar to some of the other games too.
Yeah.
But depending on which sort of cards run out faster, the bonuses you get are for the other type. So there's just there's just a lot of interesting thing happening. I would probably include this as an honorable mention because I did like this one too.
Cool. Yeah. What was your secondary?
My last one for honorable mentions is a tiny little card game by the same designers, Molly Johnson. I forget the other 2 designers who did Point Salad, which was a pretty cool card game last year, and this is called Truffle Shuffle. Truffle Shuffle, and all the cards are like these chocolate truffles in your hands. And basically, you're building a pyramid of cards that are rows or face up or face down. And you can only, similar to Seven Wonders Duel, you can only grab cards that are not covered by other cards. And you're really just doing set collection. You're trying to make like straights or pairs or flushes of the different types of chocolate cards. They all are, there's like 4 different colors or 5, and they range from 1 to 5, basically. But there's a couple other kind of added in things, like there are cards that you can use to turn other cards to make them certain colors or certain numbers. There's a card you can do to skip your turn, and then the next time you get to draw 3 cards instead of 1. It's just a real fast playing, simple kind of set collection game. That's another nice little filler. It has really beautiful art. It's really colorful. A really good family game, and I think I even like it better than Point Salad. So that's Truffle Shuffle.
Nice. Excellent. Those were our honorable mentions, and I think everyone's ready to hear what we're going to talk about for our number one picks. Number 1. Okay,
my number 1, by a pretty big margin, is another hot game this year that also uses that hybrid mechanism of deck building and worker placement, similar to Lost Ruins of Arnak. And that is a game called Dune Imperium.
I knew it. I knew it.
I really, really like this game. And the designer, Paul Dennen, is the designer of Clank. So if you like Clank or Clank in Space, which I do. I love Clank. I think I have all the expansions for it.
And the boards and stuff.
And the boards, yeah, everything. I think you'll like this game too, although this one has a lot more sort of player interaction involved. It's a game that when you look at it, you think like the graphic design is not great. It looks a little boring. The artwork on the cards is good, and the components are good quality, but you just don't think you're going to get a whole lot out of this game when you first see it. But when you play it, especially if you're familiar with the Dune franchise of movies and books, it actually does feel very thematic. At least it did to me. And the interesting way that they've done this deck building is each card has a certain amount of symbols, from 1 to 7 different symbols, and each of those symbols are different worker placement spots on the main board. So when you play a card, you can either play it to move an agent to one of the symbols that match, and sometimes you get another ability, like you might get a coin or gain some spice or different things, or you hold that card because you're your typical deck builder. You have 5 cards, and you're only going to play 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm.
You hold that card and then you do a reveal action once you finish placing your agents, and then at the reveal action, you actually then use the symbols that are on the bottom of the card, and those things can either boost your ability in combat. They can give you other bonuses. They can score you points. Just a number of different things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what I liked really well about 2 things I liked the most about the game is one, that sort of puzzle of using your cards, the cards you have in your hand, to try to optimize where you send your workers based on a really limited number of places per turn. I like the puzzle of that. I also liked that the combat felt to me a little like Blood Rage. And what I mean by that, and Blood Rage is one of my favorite games, is that after you enter combat, you are sort of competing based on how many sort of troops you've entered into the conflict versus the other people. But then during combat, you can reveal other cards that are sort of like surprise cards that could boost your combat or make make your opponent remove troops or different things like that. So it has, I don't know, it just has a neat flow to the game. It's fairly quick, but the tension of, because the whole purpose of the game, which I forgot to mention, is racing to 10 victory points. Whoever gets to the 10 first wins, similar to Scythe in a way.
Sort of.
That tension.
Catan.
Or Catan, yeah, too. that tension of especially near the end game of whether you're going to win or whether you're going to lose, just really makes for, to me, a great game. And when I played this for the first time, like I lost right on the last turn of the game. I lost.
Yeah, there were 3 people at the top of the track that were really neck and neck, and it really could have gone either way.
Yes, either way.
On the very final turn, and we had no idea what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's pretty exciting for a game like that.
Yeah, and it just, it was one of the games where it just was made, like my heart was kind of racing when I was playing the game. And it's hard to explain. It's hard to explain, but it just sort of brings that feeling out. And so for me, this right now is my game of the year for 2020.
Oh, wow. That's a strong pick.
Yeah, and in fact, I already ordered there's an upgrade set, a deluxe set you can get.
Oh boy.
That replaces cubes with like little minis and stuff. So I'm waiting for that to come in March. But that's my number one, Dune Imperium.
Sweet. I did enjoy that game, but it didn't make my list. I feel like for me, since I'm not as familiar with Dune and the property of Dune, I wasn't as impressed with the overall look of it. So for me, it just felt like a good like Euro-y game.
Yeah.
I mean, it was fun. I do recall that the combat was reminiscent of Blood Rage. The combat cards back and forth sort of thing, and you don't know what they're going to be able to play. So it's good. It's probably I'd probably put it under my honorable mentions if I had thought about it a little bit more. But for me, I've got another.
And when I think of this, like compared to say Arnak, like Lost Ruins of Arnak looks like 100% better than this game, and the theme of it is actually mostly, like if you look at it, you're going to see the theme come out of that. Whereas Dune, I feel like as you're playing, the mechanisms kind of what bring the theme out. So definitely if you can get into the game, I think you'll really like it.
Yeah, I do think that Dune has some depth to it, but it takes some work to get there.
It does. And if you
it
get
relies
behind,
more on your own knowledge of Dune before it sort of just
to know
spells
what's
it out.
important.
Yeah,
exactly.
Like, I don't know what's going on.
And I think, and I don't know because I mean, I've only played this a couple times, but
right.
It feels like if you get behind in the early game, it is a lot harder to catch up to the leader. Since you are only going for victory points. So I don't know if there is an actual, runaway leader sort of scenario. But in a couple games I've seen that can be a little discouraging if you're kind of back
I guess
behind.
you got to draw those little cards and try to get something that's more offensive.
Yeah, you definitely need to go for intrigue cards and things like that. But anyway, so what's your number one?
So my number one, you can probably guess what it is because I haven't put it on my list yet.
See, I would if Anachrony had not been one that you'd played before, that's what I would have guessed. Number one, I'm not looking at your list. What would it be?
Come on,
you've already said Etherfields.
I did.
Tainted Grail?
No, I've played that.
You played that before. Okay. What is it?
Lost Ruins of Arnak.
Oh,
I didn't put it on my list yet. No, you named it. I haven't put it on my list yet.
That's right. I thought we crossed over on this one. You're right. Oh,
not yet.
Okay.
This is a crossover. Right. Our second or third crossover, I think.
Fail.
Bonfire was a crossover.
Yep.
My City. And now Lost Ruins of Arnak. To me, this is my pick for Game of the Year 2020. And for all the reasons that we've discussed ad nauseum in this video. It's just so fun. And you just look at the board, you want to play it. Yeah. And as you're experiencing it, it feels like all the adventure movies that you've watched and enjoy. But you're also feeling like you're telling your own story. And the artwork really draws you in, like the Guardians, those big creatures that do come out like every time someone explores a new location, and you never know what they're going to do. You don't know what's going to be required of you to destroy it. And sometimes if you go later and you've sort of already spent all your resources, you're kind of in trouble because then you're going to take like a fear card, and so you're a little bit there's some risk there, but there's a lot to be gained by being the first one to enter a location. So man, there's just a lot to love there, and everything just works so well together, and the theme and the gameplay, it's all very tight. And one thing I wanted to add too that wasn't discussed is it's got a neat way of handling the cards. Because when you gain cards, it goes to the bottom of your deck. You don't actually have a discard pile in the game.
That's right.
So as a deck builder without a discard pile, you know that the new cards you're buying are going to come out before the cards that you've played this round. So after you've finished with your turn, all your played cards are shuffled together by themselves and then placed on the bottom of the deck. So all the new cards you got are on top, and you know that they're going to come out first, and it's a nice way to sort of make sure you see the good stuff, and then it's just solid.
And the other thing too I forgot was the top where you're buying the cards. There's two types of cards you can buy too.
Correct.
I forget the names of them.
There's artifacts and items.
That's it. Yeah. And there's and they also
there's
increase as the game goes along.
There's a moon staff token, right? And it points to the round that you're in, and there's I think 5 rounds. So it starts at 1, and there's only 1 card slot to its left and 5 to its right. But then in the second round it moves, and now there's 2 on its left and then 3 on its right. The reason for this is or 4 on its right. The reason for this is because the artifacts only come in on the left side, and the items only come in on the right side. So as the game progresses, the start of it, you have so many items to choose from, but then slowly the items go away, you have less to choose from, and now you've got a lot of artifacts. And so if you missed out early on getting those items, you're kind of out of luck to whatever the random draw comes out for, having a display. But the artifacts, while they're really powerful, they have a one-time upfront really strong effect. But then when it comes into your deck later and you have it in your hand, it's more difficult to get that effect again, because then you have to pay to be able to trigger that. So it's the later half of the game is a little more interesting, because at that point you're kind of almost stuck with what your deck is, and you don't want too many artifacts, because in the final turns those artifacts aren't as powerful as an item.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's interesting. Both our number ones are these hybrid deck builders.
Yeah.
And
That's
I was
solid.
I was trying to think what other games were, if there were games like this before. The only thing that was close to me was maybe like Everdell, because you have cards and you're placing, but it's not, you're not building a deck really. You're just building a tableau of cards.
Yeah, that's true.
These games, they ramp up because at first you're only able to do a few things, and then later in the game you're just doing all kinds of crazy moves.
The combos in this game are really fun, and sometimes you have a turn that's just like, okay, I do this and I do this, and that now allows me to do this, and now I can flip this over, and your turn all of a sudden becomes like really big.
Yeah, very, very satisfying.
Yeah, it's just one of those games that is just fun to play.
Yeah, and I would say, if you're listening and you're thinking about getting these games, I mean, I think they're both great games, this and Dune. But for introducing like someone new, I would absolutely go with Arnak, because I think the theme itself and just the graphic design, the way it looks, is something that's going to really draw someone in. Whereas I think Dune is more of a niche type game, that is going to be enjoyed by a certain type of player. So great pick, and I can't believe I forgot you didn't know you picked that.
I was
one.
like, how'd you forget?
Yeah.
Oh man.
All right.
Well, this has been a
fun
top 10 list, and we kind of share a little bit about what we've been playing with you guys. We want to hear what you've been playing.
Yep.
So comment in the YouTube video or send us an email and that sort of thing, and let us know if you have a top 10 or top 5 or something like that for recent games that were new to you. They don't have to be from the past year.
Right.
I mean, a lot of mine happen to be, just how it goes. We'd love to hear from you, and leave us your comments on anything else that you would like us to talk about.
You need top 10 lists or other topics,
suggestions for ideas on lists to go through, because I mean, lists are a lot of fun.
They are.
Top 10s, man. So thanks for watching, and make sure you tune in. And if you don't know, once again, you can check it out on just the audio version on the podcast servers like Apple Podcasts, or if you're listening there, make sure to go to YouTube and check out the Meeple Mentor YouTube channel, where we also, in addition to this podcast, do tutorial videos, lore, unboxings. Occasionally we do some designer interviews, news. That's a new thing.
That's a new thing. Yep. News.
Every other Friday I do a what's new in board gaming, just kind of covering Kickstarters to look at, highlighting a few that are interesting, industry news, and then sort of an update on what's happening
Kickstarters
with the channel as well. So there's a lot of cool stuff. So stick around and head there and watch some more videos, and like and subscribe and
tell your friends.
Tell your friends.
Tell your mom.
It's all good. We just do this for fun because we love board games.
Yeah,
so
it's fun to talk about the hobby.
Thanks for tuning in. I've been Jared.
I've been Jay.
See you next time.
Catch you later. Bye.